Dr. Cara Kennedy from the University of Canterbury. Cara will be speaking about digital natives don't exist. Let me repeat that for you. Digital natives don't exist. So this topic surrounds digital literacy and the large implications of a digitally illiterate population, particularly in a post-COVID-19 world. Research shows that the idea of the digital native is a myth, yet educational institutions, businesses, and industry continue to operate as if it is true. This means that they base decisions on faulty assumptions and fail to adequately train both young and mature people in the skills needed to fully participate as learners, workers, and citizens. Cara is a researcher, writer, and educator in the areas of digital literacy and science fiction. So I'm looking forward to this session, and now we'll cross over to Cara in the Auckland studio. Thank you.
Kia ora, everyone. My name is Cara. I'm going to be talking today about the implications of a digitally illiterate population in the age that we're living in, which is the digital age. I've published on the importance of digital literacy, specifically for humanities and law courses, but I believe it should also be more widespread. So first, some definitions. What do I mean by digital literacy? You can also define this as digital skills. I really like this definition from 2008. It defines digital literacy as the awareness, attitude, and ability of individuals to appropriately use digital tools and facilities to do all of these things: identify, access, manage, integrate, evaluate, analyze, and synthesize digital resources, construct new knowledge, create media expressions, and communicate with others. And you've probably heard the term digital native. This was a term coined in 2001 to refer to young people who were supposedly naturally good with technology just because they grew up with it. But research has shown this is largely a myth, but it remains very popular in the media and in common usage. And the digital divide refers to the gap between people who have devices, have internet access, have digital skills, and then the people who don't. So digital literacy has evolved from the 1960s. It used to be about media literacy and mass media. Then it moved into ICT and technological literacy. And then by the 80s, when the internet started coming out, it became known as information literacy, navigating the internet. And now the term digital literacy is often used to be a broad umbrella term, which means now you need to be a critical navigator, consumer, and producer of digital content, both at home and at work, pretty much everywhere. And of course, at the same time as notions of literacy have been evolving, the computer has been changing from computers that used to be the size of a room to now we have everything is small, slim in our pockets, and goes with us everywhere we go. So why is this an important issue? When people lack a robust set of up-to-date digital skills, or they mistakenly think they already have all the skills they need, this can translate into a lot of negative consequences. Less efficiency, productivity, and creativity, frustration, feelings of helplessness, security and organizational risks, a smaller pool of talent, inability to communicate technical needs to others, inability to harness computing power in their projects. So for example, artificial intelligence and machine learning are on the rise, more indebtedness to the default software capabilities, more likely to be hoodwinked by fake news or scams, and a reliance on algorithms and information seeking. So what this all translates to ultimately is a significant threat to well-being due to digital exclusion, or an inability for someone to fully participate in society or benefit from tech. So ranging from basics like online banking, government services, communication channels, through to job opportunities, advancement, etc. For the Defense Force, they're going to require increasingly technically skilled personnel across a variety of positions. So the New Zealand Defence Force has the capability of managing and effectively using operation, which they consider fundamental. The information domain includes areas such as cyber and electronic warfare and information activities. And many of the forecasted disruptors and threats, as well as potential responses and solutions, are going to involve the digital realm in some way. So what's the current landscape with digital literacy or digital skills? Well, the key takeaway is use doesn't necessarily mean skillful use. Many people, including young people, remain amateur users of technology. As devices and software have become easier to use, this has lulled us into a false sense of mastery. Your general internet user lacks the skills to be able to conduct a proper search information session. And an OECD study a couple years ago showed that over 40% of workers who use Office software don't have sufficient ICT skills to do so. Also, the breadth of skills needed has become wider. So even if someone's an expert in one area, they could be a complete novice in several other areas. Problems with the digital native myth are that actually your aptitude and your confidence with technology are impacted more by things such as socioeconomic and cultural environment, race, ethnicity, gender, your level of self-efficacy, and your education level than age. And so we have a sense of overconfidence among youth, which masks a massive underlying skill we have. And in the end, mature people are unfairly often written off, which can then become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So they're told they're not good with tech, so then they think they're not good with tech, so then they aren't good with tech. Some studies have actually shown that seniors can perform better on higher order skills than youth, likely because they have a broader life experience and wisdom to draw from. There are also problems with the existing research on the digital divide, in that many studies only measure usage rather than skills. And we have very little data available on higher order digital skills, which I'll talk about in a moment. Self-assessments are often inaccurate, and they're poor predictors of performance. Essentially, people just don't know what they don't know. And the real extent of digital exclusion is unknown because there's a lot of misconceptions about basic facts. So you do a survey and ask people, do you have high-speed or Wi-Fi internet at home? They say yes, even though all they have is phone data. So this pyramid is a framework for digital skills that comes out of a book called Digital Skills, Unlocking the Information Age, which I find really useful for thinking about what kind of digital skills do we need nowadays. So the lower level skills, like operational, is considered button knowledge, so knowing how to use a computer, knowing how to use a mouse. And as we move up the pyramid, the skills become more complex. So knowing how to browse the internet, knowing how to find information and evaluate it, all the way up to being able to communicate effectively, to be able to create content like videos and blogs. And then at the top level, we have strategic. And this is where you can draw on all of the existing knowledge underneath and use the digital medium for your personal or professional goals. And so these authors found in their studies that there's been a lot of emphasis on the lower levels of the pyramid by governments, by society, education, teaching people how to use computers, but there's been very little attention to those higher level skills getting up to the strategic level. And they also found that young people are a lot more adept at the low level skills, but they lack the life experience to be able to interpret and evaluate information. So what are the issues? Well, we have digital technology constantly changing, right? It's hard to keep up. And then people don't agree on what kind of skills and what knowledge are needed. There's also things like stereotypes. Oh, you're a geek. Oh, you're a nerd. Or, oh, that's not for someone like you. Or it's presented as too hard. And then this translates into a lack of interest or motivation. Or people are fearful about technology and they don't want to engage. Some people are viewing technology and the continual upskilling that's needed as an additional burden rather than a normal part of their job, BAU. Formal education, unfortunately, is still struggling to adapt to the internet and to be able to teach digital literacy and skills. And even workforce training and continuing professional development is also patchy or lacking. So what do we have? We have a growing digital divide. Many are being left further behind because they don't have the right devices, they lack access to the internet, or they lack digital skills to be able to use them effectively. So I believe there's some implications from this. I think digital literacy should be seen as an essential skill. That's not something that's innate. It must be taught and cultivated over the long term. It's not about specific programs or specific coding knowledge. It's about lifelong learning for a digital world. And even though countries such as New Zealand are trying to respond to these issues with more educational initiatives, giving out devices, these aren't able to meet the vast need. So, for example, changing the school curriculum doesn't benefit the millions of us who have already gone through formal schooling. Giving out devices to people who don't have the skills to actually use them safely and effectively can lead to negative unintended consequences. And COVID-19 has only accelerated the growth of the digital divide. It's forced millions of people to try to work, study, and communicate on digital platforms with little or no preparation. So what are the opportunities here? I believe we need interesting and engaging lifelong education that promotes digital literacy skills. But it has to be agile enough to adapt to changes in technology, which are constantly happening. It needs to be in-depth enough to cultivate those higher order strategic level skills, not just the lower level button knowledge. It needs to be accessible, it needs to be relevant to people, and it needs to be empowering enough to convince them to keep learning so that they don't drop out or check out or think this isn't for me. I believe this will help to cultivate a greater sense of well-being and inclusion in our society, a better informed and protected population, improved efficiency and productivity, less frustrated or left behind students and workers, more innovation, more business competitiveness, a fostering of an attitude of openness and excitement about tech rather than fearfulness or distrust, and ultimately more diverse solutions to today's pressing global challenges, of which we have many. So these are some of the references that I've used. I'm currently working on developing some digital literacy courses to address this issue. If you're interested in learning more, please feel free to get in touch with me. Thank you.